soft, calming tone. It's time now to slow down, to breathe deeply, and feel yourself growing lighter with each gentle breath. Let the day melt away. Let your shoulders soften. Let the weight you've been carrying gently dissolve into the mattress beneath you. You are safe here, and you are not alone. You might hear the faint whisper of a breeze through tall trees, or the rhythmic creak of a rocking chair by a hearth. The air is cool and gentle, and there's a soft, amber light flickering in the corner of the room, perhaps from a candle, or the warm crackle of a fireplace. Feel it all slowing down, your thoughts growing quieter, like ripples in a pond after a stone has long since settled. And now, let your imagination rise, like mist rising from a sleepy town road at twilight, because our story today begins on a quiet street, in a village that only wakes up when the world goes to sleep. Whispering, the street lamps flicker on one by one. Click, click, click. A golden glow spills across cobblestones. The gentle hush of crickets sings in the distance. And somewhere beyond the village square, a lantern swings on the hip of a man in a dark navy coat. He is the village's night guardian, Constable Elias Wynn, a gentle man with eyes like winter rain, and a heart that listened more than it spoke. Every evening, as the village curled up into its warm beds, Elias would begin his patrol. But it wasn't about danger, not in this town. It was about presence, about comfort, about the familiar rhythm of his boots, tapping gently along the roads like a lullaby. He carried no weapon, only a notepad in his pocket, and a brass lantern lit with a soft blue flame that never seemed to go out. Villagers would say that Elias's lantern knew how to find the lonely, and each time it flickered in a certain way, he would follow it. You see, in this place, this whispering village where the stars shine a little closer, and time moves just a little slower, every night has its stories, and Elias, he was the one who listened. Tonight, the fog was sitting low on the rooftops, soft and silver, like the breath of dreaming trees, and as Elias made his way past the baker's window, he paused just briefly, to make a note in his pad. Bread left out again. Old Mr. Harrow must have fallen asleep early. Check in on him tomorrow. He smiled softly, his breath fogging the cold air, then moved on. The lantern on his hip began to glow, just a little brighter, just a little cooler. So Elias turned left, toward the narrow path that led to the old mill bridge, where the stream whispered secrets beneath mossy stone. And there, sitting at the edge of the bridge, was a little boy, no more than 7, with messy curls and eyes like midnight lakes. He didn't cry, just sat there, feet dangling above the water, hands clenched around something in his lap. Elias didn't startle him. He never did. He just lowered himself beside the boy, slowly, like a leaf drifting down to rest beside another. He let the silence stay a moment, let it stretch and yawn, as peaceful as an old cat in a sunbeam. "Trouble sleeping?" Elias asked gently, his voice barely more than the breeze. The boy nodded, just once, still not looking up. "Want to tell me about it?" The boy hesitated, then opened his hands. Inside them, a broken wooden whistle. "I dropped it," he whispered. "It was my brother's." Elias looked at the whistle, worn, splintered near the mouthpiece, but still full of memory. "He went away last winter," the boy added. Elias nodded. "I remember. He used to run with the post dog up on Lavender Hill." The boy's eyes widened just a bit. "You remember that?" "I remember all kinds of things," Elias said, with a warm smile. "That's my job." He reached into his coat, pulled out a tiny strip of leather cord and a whittling knife. "May I?" he asked. The boy nodded. And there on the bridge, beneath stars thick as sugar on velvet, Elias began to mend the whistle. Not to fix it, exactly, but to honor it. He wrapped the cord carefully around the splintered edge, making it strong enough to wear around the neck. "It doesn't need to make music," Elias said softly. "Sometimes it's enough that it carries a memory." The boy stared at it, then placed it around his neck. The lantern flickered again, soft blue, like a sigh, and the boy stood. "Thank you, Mr. Wynn," he said. Elias tipped his hat, and as the boy disappeared back up the path, toward his warm house and the arms of his waiting mother, Elias turned back toward the bridge, let his hand trail along the cool stone edge. Then he walked on, down a lane lined with lilac trees, past windows that glowed with soft golden light, past sleeping cats curled in doorways, and wind chimes whispering lullabies. This was the rhythm of his nights, not crime. Not justice in the loud, rigid way the world often speaks of, but the kind of justice that comes from attention, from gentleness, from seeing the smallest sadness and choosing to walk toward it instead of away. That is who Constable Elias Wynn was, the keeper of the quiet, the watcher of windows, the mender of broken things. Pause, and as his boots carry him farther into the night, with the blue flame still softly swaying at his side, you can feel yourself drifting, gently, peacefully, like a feather carried on the breath of a dream. Soft tone continues, and so the night drifted on, calm, quiet, wrapped in velvet shadows and distant stars. Constable Elias walked with the kind of pace only the moon understood, slow, intentional, present. His lantern bobbed gently at his hip, casting sleepy ripples of soft blue light over cobblestones slick with dew. Far in the distance, a fox darted between the hedges, quick, silent, almost mischievous, but Elias simply tipped his head in greeting. He was known to the night creatures here, not feared, not chased, only seen, and seen in return. The road curved now, winding toward Wren Hollow, a quieter stretch of the village where trees arched overhead like ancient guardians, their branches whispering lullabies to one another in the breeze. It was here that Elias paused. His lantern had flickered once again, not brighter this time, but deeper, as though a note had been struck in the bottom of a still lake. He stepped off the path. His boots barely made a sound on the mossy trail. Just ahead, tucked between two large willow trees, stood an old wooden bench, and on it, an elderly woman sat, wrapped in a thick shawl, hands folded gently in her lap. She was staring up at the moon, eyes glassy but serene. Elias approached slowly. "Evening, Mrs. Cardwell," he said softly. Her head turned slightly, and her eyes, though clouded with age, sparkled in the moonlight. "Oh, Elias," she breathed. "I thought I heard your steps." He smiled and settled beside her, his lantern gently swaying, casting halos across the leaves. "You all right out here tonight?" She nodded. "Just needed a little air. Sometimes the memories get loud inside that house. Out here, they quiet down." Elias nodded thoughtfully. "The trees do help," he said. "They're good listeners." Mrs. Cardwell chuckled, a soft, brittle sound like wind rustling old pages. "They've heard my stories more times than I can count," she said, "but they never complain." Silence settled again, a peaceful silence, like a blanket warmed by the hearth. Elias reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small paper pouch. "Lavender tea leaves," he said, offering it. "Dried fresh last week. Thought you might enjoy a few more nights of good sleep." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the pouch. "You always remember the little things, Elias. It's the little things that whisper the loudest," he said. A breeze stirred the willow branches. They creaked gently, like rocking chairs on an old porch. And somewhere far off, an owl called once, twice. Mrs. Cardwell looked up at the sky again. "You know," she said, "when Henry was alive, he'd always walk me home from the baker's every evening, even if it was just across the road." She laughed softly. "I told him once, 'Henry, I'm not a child, I won't get lost.' And he said, 'No. But I'd rather walk beside you than wonder if you're all right.'" Elias's eyes softened. "That sounds like him." She closed her eyes. "Sometimes, I still feel his hand at my elbow, just faintly." Elias rose and offered his arm. "Well then," he said with a smile, "let's make sure he doesn't have to walk you alone tonight." She took it, gently, gratefully, and together they walked back toward her cottage, a slow, rhythmic pace, the kind that sways you like a lullaby. As they reached her garden gate, Elias paused. He looked back over the path they'd just taken, at the sleepy arc of willow trees swaying under a velvet sky. The lantern pulsed gently, as though acknowledging a story well told. Mrs. Cardwell touched his hand. "Thank you, Elias, for being here." "Always," he whispered. The door closed softly behind her, and Elias continued on. The village was quiet now, deeply quiet, the kind of stillness that only came when every home had tucked in, when the wind had settled, when even the night itself began to yawn. He made his way down Blackberry Lane, his lantern brushing against ivy-covered fences. The scent of honeysuckle drifted in the air, faint, sleepy. At the very end of the lane, there was a tiny greenhouse, barely big enough to stand in. It belonged to Nora Beale, the florist. And as Elias passed it, he noticed the door was ajar. He paused, frowning softly, stepped inside. There, amidst the smell of damp earth and sprigs of mint, sat Nora, crouched on a low stool, eyes red, shoulders trembling. Elias didn't say a word. He just sat across from her, his lantern resting on a wooden crate. It bathed the room in a soft blue calm. "I didn't mean to stay this late," she murmured. "I know," Elias said. "I just couldn't sleep. It's my mum's birthday tomorrow, first one since she passed." He nodded, said nothing. Let the silence hold her like a blanket. "She used to grow moonflowers," Nora whispered, rubbing the soil between her fingers. "Said they were magic. Said they bloom only when no one's watching." Elias looked around the small greenhouse. Moonflowers coiled in pots along the wall, some still closed, others just beginning to open under the weight of the night. "She was right," Elias said gently. "There's magic in things that bloom in darkness." Nora wiped her cheeks and smiled faintly. "I didn't even realize they were blooming tonight." "That's grief," he said. "It makes us forget the things we still carry, until someone reminds us they're still blooming." She reached out, touched one of the petals, soft, pale, luminous, and as she did, the lantern flared gently, like a hush settling into place. Elias rose. "You don't need to sleep tonight," he said, "but when you do, let your dreams be wrapped in moonflowers." She smiled, tears in her eyes but lighter somehow. "Thank you, Constable." He tipped his hat, then stepped back into the night. The wind picked up slightly now, just enough to stir the edges of leaves, to ruffle the roofs, to carry whispers down chimneys and lullabies through cracks in cottage shutters. And as Elias continued his rounds, the night deepened. The stars turned ever so slowly, and you, dear listener, can feel yourself slowing too, as if walking beside him, your feet on soft moss, your breath sinking with the night, and your mind, now adrift, as peaceful as the lantern's glow.